Imagine this. It's the 1970s. America's dinner tables are filled with casseroles, Jell-O salads, and an endless supply of canned tuna. Tuna sandwiches for lunch, tuna noodle casseroles for dinner, tuna surprise for potlucks. The surprise being whether anyone actually wants to eat it. Tuna was cheap, convenient, and considered a healthy source of protein. But then came the not-so-delicious newsflash. Much of that tuna was quietly marinated in mercury. Yep, mercury. The same stuff in thermometers, fluorescent lights, and things you definitely shouldn't sprinkle on a salad. So how exactly did mercury sneak its way into America's favorite fish? And why did it become one of the biggest food scares of the decade? Let's crack open the can of history right here on History of Food. Before the mercury panic, tuna was America's golden fish. During World War II, canned tuna kept soldiers fed, and after the war, it kept suburban families well-stocked. It was cheap, versatile, and marketed as the protein that could save you money without sacrificing nutrition. By the 1950s and 60s, tuna had become a pantry staple. Ads featured happy moms whipping up tuna casseroles while kids smiled like tuna was the most exciting thing since sliced bread. It was the chicken of the sea, before Jessica Simpson made that phrase awkward decades later. Basically, if you lived in America, tuna was on your plate at some point, and you probably didn't question what was inside the can. So why was mercury in tuna such a big deal? A quick science refresher. Mercury is a naturally occurring element, but when industrial pollution releases it into rivers and oceans, bacteria convert it into methylmercury. Fish absorb it, smaller fish pass it along, and by the time it reaches big predators like tuna, swordfish, or sharks, the mercury levels are sky high. And here's the kicker. Mercury isn't something your body just shrugs off. It builds up, messing with your nervous system and brain function. Too much mercury can cause tremors, memory problems, and in severe cases, permanent neurological damage. Not exactly what you want with your sandwich. By the early 1970s, scientists began sounding the alarm. Studies showed that tuna, especially albacore and other larger species, contained higher than expected levels of mercury. Suddenly, the fish that had been America's budget-friendly protein started looking more like a chemistry experiment. The scare really caught fire when newspapers began reporting mercury levels in canned tuna that were over what health officials considered safe. Grocery shoppers were horrified. Housewives, who had been told tuna was good for their kids, now worried they were basically feeding them poison. The tuna industry tried to downplay the findings, insisting the levels were safe. But once the word mercury entered public consciousness, there was no going back. Sales plummeted, lawsuits started popping up, and America had a full-blown food panic on its hands. Here's where the drama kicks into high gear. In 1970, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, set an official limit on mercury in fish, 0.5 parts per million. That meant any canned tuna with more than that was technically illegal to sell. Problem? Tons of tuna already on grocery shelves didn't cut. Supermarkets had to pull cans, recalls were issued, and families started giving tuna the side eye at dinner. For an industry built on the promise of being safe, cheap, and healthy, this was a PR nightmare. Imagine if tomorrow someone said peanut butter contained uranium. You'd probably rethink your PB&J. News outlets ran with the story, sometimes blowing it out of proportion, which only fueled the fear. Late-night jokes about glowing tuna didn't help either. Suddenly, tuna had gone from middle-class comfort food to a potential death trap. Moms switched to other proteins. Chicken gained even more popularity. Some families swore off tuna completely, convinced it was unsafe forever. The tuna industry scrambled with new ads insisting their product was safe and nutritious, but trust is hard to rebuild once people associate your food with brain damage. The tuna companies didn't just sit quietly while their sales tanked. They lobbied hard, argued that mercury levels were being exaggerated, and even accused scientists of fear-mongering. They emphasized that tuna had fed generations of Americans without noticeable harm. And in fairness, not every can of tuna was a toxic bomb. Most mercury levels were borderline rather than catastrophic. But perception is everything, and once consumers feel betrayed, the damage is done. The mercury and tuna crisis of the 1970s did something bigger than just hurt tuna sales. It changed how Americans thought about food safety. For the first time, people realized that industrial pollution could affect what landed on their dinner plate. It wasn't just about spoiled milk or undercooked chicken anymore. Chemicals from factories could wind up in your tuna salad. The idea that invisible contaminants could be lurking in everyday food sparked a wave of new health awareness and government regulations. The FDA started testing fish more rigorously. Labels began carrying more information, and environmental groups gained momentum in pointing out the hidden costs of pollution. Tuna never fully recovered its squeaky clean reputation, but it didn't disappear either. Instead, it adapted. Canned tuna sales dipped hard in the 70s, but by the 80s, clever marketing brought it back. Brands pushed the light varieties of tuna, which had lower mercury levels than albacore. Ads focused on diet culture, pitching tuna as the ultimate lean protein for weight loss. And let's be honest, tuna casseroles didn't exactly scream trendy, but tuna salad sandwiches made their way back into lunchboxes. Still, mercury never completely left the conversation. Even today, health experts warn pregnant women and young children to limit tuna consumption because of mercury risks. The ghost of the 1970s scare still lingers. The 1970s tuna scare also raised awareness about mercury in other seafood. Swordfish, shark, and king mackerel all were flagged for high levels. Tuna just happened to be the most popular fish at the time, which made it the poster child for the problem. This broadened the conversation. It wasn't just about one type of fish, but about how modern industry and environmental issues affected the food chain. In some ways, tuna was the wake-up call Americans needed. So, was tuna in the 1970s really toxic? Yes and no. Yes, it contained mercury, sometimes above safe levels, and yes, it triggered a nationwide panic. But no, it wasn't an instant death sentence. Most people who ate tuna back then didn't keel over from mercury poisoning. The bigger issue was what it revealed: how pollution, industry, and food safety collide in ways we can't always see. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.